I'm like my mom.
Hi there.
Here's my card, though.
Oh, thank you. I'll just email.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Susan Campos, and I'm really pleased to be with this impressive group of women up here and moderating a panel on women on the creative edge. This is such an incredible group of women. These are the kind of women you want to have dinner with, and they're all doing different things: astronomy, fashion, philanthropy, education, Hollywood, acting. You're doing everything too. So they're incredible. And I thought, what do you ask these group of women? What's so great is that they all think outside the box. And that's what I want to talk about and start with is, give me a little more, I'm going to introduce you all, then you'll give a little background, and then we'll kind of see how you think outside the box. So when I say your name, why don't you raise your hand so everyone knows who you are. And we're going to start with Julia Hunter, who comes from the world of investment banking, and she was in technology. And then she decided to just change that and go into fashion, and she now heads Jenni Kayne, and it's a great lifestyle fashion brand, and they are just killing it, and she's doing so much for them. So I want to welcome you. And then Dr. Jacqueline Sanderlin, and she's in education, and she too, I just saw you on Ellen, a video of you on Ellen. How did that happen?
Am I first? Oh.
You aren't going to be, but that was just
I don't know how I jumped to that. Okay, yes.
But she's an author, an educator, she's a community developer, and most of all, she always asks the question, why not? Which is what I love in anything.
Thank you.
And then we have Tana Fedrick, who is an actress, an activist, a director, and she started the project Save Our Surf and is the founder of the Iowa Independent Film Festival, which is in her home state. Congratulations on that. And next to me, we have Fiorella Terenzi. She is an astrophysicist, an author, and a musician who pioneered techniques to convert radio waves from distant galaxies into sound. I mean, who thinks of doing that? That's so cool. And then Tracy Kardash is at the very end there. And she's a genius philanthropist who started with the Jewish Federation and is now doing a ton of work for PEN America. And she's working on protecting the First Amendment for everyone from journalists to college students. I think it's pretty amazing. So first, I want to thank you all. And Julia, I'm going to start with you and tell us how you think outside the box, a little more on your background and how it's helped you in your career.
Okay, well, I'm Julia Hunter. I run Jenni Kayne and started my career. Jenni Kayne now is a lifestyle brand, so we have, 7 retail stores, 5 in California, 1 in New York, and 1 just opened in Denver. We have a very rapidly growing e-commerce business and plans to more than double. The company will double its revenue this year and then more than double the store count and e-com again next year. So we're in a really exciting time of growth. I think a lot of that has come through thinking outside of the box. Jenni Kayne is a legacy wholesale business, so it's existed for about 18 years. And it started really as an apparel and fashion brand with Runway American Sportswear. Today, we don't participate in fashion in the traditional sense at all anymore. Our mix is a lot of sweaters, shoes, lifestyle categories that are very easy to wear and not things that you would typically see on the runway. And so most of the brands that are in our space that kind of compete in those types of categories are what's called digitally native brands. I'm sure everyone's heard much about them. And so those are brands that started on the internet and didn't do the wholesale business as their original structure. So I think Jenni Kayne is one of the few companies that has really transitioned, and it's taken some work from a wholesale brand that was carried primarily by Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, those types of places, to today where 95% of our business comes from retail channels. And so that's been a big project for us, trying to get to a place where the business is really focused on communicating directly with our customers. So just in terms of thinking outside of the box, I think we've done a lot of projects that have really helped elevate the brand from a traditional retail brand to what we consider to be a true lifestyle brand. Lots of people say they are a lifestyle brand, but our biggest and most recent project was a book that we just launched with Rizzoli called Pacific Natural, which is a really beautiful, entertaining book, and we're basically trying to position Jenni as the new Martha Stewart, West Coast Martha Stewart. So we're really excited that that book launched, and it was different from the product that we carry in our retail stores. And now, thinking further outside of the box from the book, we're trying to turn that into a TV show with a Netflix or Apple as a production partner. So really trying to do something different in the retail space. We have a retail brand, but trying to build it into a media company as well.
Wow.
I know, that's amazing what you're doing. They're doing everything, and it is a really great idea. And even using a book, which isn't something that a lot of people are doing, and that they're going towards social media, but the book is so beautiful, and it is a great way to grow the brand. Okay, Tracy, you started with the Jewish Federation, and you're now with Penn. Tell us about your trajectory and how you think outside the box.
So my name's Tracy Kardash, and PEN America, for those of you who don't know, sits at the intersection of literature and human rights. So we work to protect the First Amendment here in the United States and around the globe. We believe that the power of the word has the ability to change the world. And we are working with writers and their allies to really protect free speech and the liberties that make that possible. When I was asked about thinking outside the box, as a development professional, I think that's one of the things that drew me to this work. Often people come to me and say, I have a dream, how do we make it possible? And figuring out the mechanisms and individuals who can fund a project really takes a lot of creative thinking. To just think on two kind of real outside the box examples, I was with a homeless organization, and we had a real aging donor base, and we had to figure out how we were going to sustain funding long term. And I saw a journal that had an article in it that somebody wrote a paper on estimating life expectancy, and I was able to partner with a mathematician from Caltech who donated his services to actually develop a spreadsheet that played out that formula and allowed us to bump it against our database to be able to figure out exactly how long each of our donors were going to live and what money was going to be needed to be replaced when. So that was a real outside-the-box strategy to sustaining the organization long-term. Another example that came to mind is I had a donor who I approached for a gift to build a outdoor, really stargazing village for underserved kids in an inner-city camp. And when I approached him for the gift, he agreed to seed half of it. And in our conversation, he agreed he would try to raise the other half. But in doing so, he was only willing to send one email to his contacts. So I worked with a VR specialist who came up to the camp and created the Village of Our Dreams in a virtual program that had a shopping cart with each of the items being able to be named so that people could see what their name would look like on specific pieces of the village and check out in a cart the actual thing that they wanted to buy, whether it was a telescope or whether it was a camera or whether it was one of the sleep out tents. And we were able to raise the additional dollars, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars, to create the village for the underserved kids.
Well, that is thinking outside the box. That's wonderful. All right, you are up, Fiorella, and I do love, I mean, you think outside the box, somehow marrying astronomy and acoustics. How did you think of doing that?
I just had an idea that I was tired to look up to the night sky. I was reading a book and everything was about the eyes. And then working with the radio waves from space, I said, how come I can't hear those radio waves? So I seek out the tool that was computer music and was radio astronomy. And I put them together. So you unite the opposite, music with radio waves from 100 billion or 180 million light years away. So you can hear radio waves that really belong to the dinosaur time, Jurassic time. So now you can look up, you can listen to the universe. Soon you're going to taste it too. You will have an ice cream, a Saturnian base. And why not to touch it? We have 5 senses. I am pro using all we have to investigate and explore this backyard. It's our home.
That's really cool. That's really
That's
cool.
awesome.
So Tana, how did you go from acting to creating a charity and also to creating a film festival?
Well, the film festival was because I'm from Iowa, so that was kind of a given that I wanted to go back to Iowa and actually bring some filming to Iowa. So, so that happened, and I wanted to say thank you for moderating the panel so last minute. Really appreciate it. It's great to see familiar faces, and really an honor to be up here with so many brilliant women. And I think the way VR has affected me being out of the box is that I produced a narrative VR series called Defrost with Randall Kleiser, and it's been a really amazing experience. It's a 12-episode VR experience that Randall came to me about producing 3 years ago before there was any narrative VR, and he had written this script in 1973 at USC, and Randall's the director of Grease and Flight of the Navigator and Blue Lagoon, so he's pretty schooled on directing, but he wasn't so schooled on directing VR, and so we took a chance and we both jumped into it, and we hired actors such as Carl Weathers from Predator and Chris Atkins from Blue Lagoon and Veronica Cartwright, who's from Alien, and we ended up creating this great plot line, and 3 years later we just had our launch out here and sold the series to Veer in China, and so thinking outside of the box and figuring out how do you film with VR, how do you come up with the SAG contracts for actors in VR. We were kind of the first to do a lot of that stuff, so that was really wild, and it was really an amazing experience.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I love that. And Dr. J, I saw that you were on Ellen, which you looked like you were really excited. I guess you didn't know you were going to be on, which was really cool.
I did not know. I did not know.
Tell us what you're doing, because I know you believe in children learning through arts, and at a time when all these programs are being cut. And tell us how you do this and think outside the box.
Well, thank you for having me. I want to try the ice cream. I'm sorry, I want to just get that out. It's like I'm only thinking about the ice cream right now. And so I did not start out in education. So I don't know how many of you kind of went one way and went another way. I was trying to be, a celebrity for a long time, I guess since I was born. And that didn't work out. So I kind of veered into education. And getting into education, I found out really was a service. And I got into it differently. I became an educator, and in that, a teacher, and then a principal. And then, like, for 25 years, felt like I was off track. I went way away from what I tried to start doing when I was an intern at Channel 9 and 11 and doing waste baskets and making copies, and then found out that education was where I was really supposed to be, because I found a different way to do it. I kind of was in very tough communities, Compton, for like 18 years as a principal. But the best scholars that I can ever say I've worked with, and I call them scholars, not just students, because I found out if you speak life into them, they respond. And while they might have come from very tough backgrounds that I had never even experienced myself, they were survivors. And they taught me that it was better to empower them than just to have pity on them. And so how Ellen and others got into the mix was because, I don't know if you've ever been tired of waiting. I was tired as an educator waiting for monies to come from the federal government and all of that. So I started reaching out to partners who would help and who would work with us, not just help and charity, if that makes sense to you, but work with us in partnership. And so we brought the music back, we brought the arts back, dance, music, theater, even golf on the campus in Compton. And we did it without charging parents, we did it without being able, we didn't have the money ourselves, but we did it in partnership. And we found out that it was all about opportunities and access. And then I got a call from Ellen. Now that was interesting because I thought it was a bill collector for a while. I didn't answer the phone, I kept, you delete, because you don't know who it is. And then, so when I finally spoke to her producers, they said, is it true you have music and theater and dance? And, you know, things of that nature. Do you have a 9-hole putting green on the campus? I was like, yes, we do, because I felt why not? So why not came from me speaking this with my scholars every morning outside, saying, why not, why not? I mean, I had little kindergartners saying, why not, why not? But, you know, just because I felt like this is all we have left. And if all we can do is say, why not us? Something good is going to happen. So some good things did happen. And so she did show up like within 48 hours, like the whole crew on the campus. And then I thought it was just to tape, but I didn't know she was going to be live. And so she gave us $50,000, and we got calls for months from all over the world. But what it did more than that, it changed my perspective about why I'm here. And it wasn't just an education. So I learned a lot about myself through my scholars, through the families, through the community. That if we empower a community, because remember, we did a lot of those things just talking to people and making friends. We didn't ask for pity, we didn't ask for charity. We said, can we partner with you? And Lowe's came, and you know, Home Depot came, and Goodwill came, and you know, Nordstrom's came, and people we didn't even expect came. And we began to work with them. And so it turned from 10 to about 205 community partners that worked with us. And I'm just so excited. We have the Goodwill here who worked, someone who worked in the Goodwill and worked with me and worked with our scholars. I didn't know that they provide jobs for young people. And now I'm so excited that 2 of them right now are going into USC. That's and awesome. You know, working with them, and they're about to develop their own careers. So empowering the community was the out-of-box strategy for me.
Also, I think just people always think, how do you raise money? Because I think that's always the hardest part. And Tracy, when I asked you that, like, the other thing is, how do you ask for money? And you had a great way of doing this that a professor told you.
Yeah, one of my professors from Brandeis University, I did a master's in arts concentrating in fundraising and community relations. And the professor said to us one day, don't think about it as asking. Think about it as providing someone with the opportunity to do good. And they can either say yes or no, but if you don't make the ask, you haven't provided them that vehicle to make change. And I just thought it was the most beautiful thing in the world, and I live by it, and I believe in building partnerships. I think that's when the magic happens. It's when you find like-minded people who want to create change together and can see a vision for the future.
Julia, how do you do? I mean, because you were in investment banking as well. What do you? Raising money, I think, is always difficult.
Yes, it is, and I think it just comes with so many strings attached. That's typically the problem. I run a for-profit company, so it's different than others on the panel. And I think for us, profitability is always the top of mind in every conversation. And so when you go out to raise money, I think people really want you to be in my business, it's always the graph needs to be up and to the right, so you have to really show that you're growing really quickly, and that is important to do for us and the team, but I think it's also about not being too risk averse, and so sometimes in those conversations when we're talking about raising money, partners are going to want to see a straight line to the return. They're not as interested as you in letting you be creative and try things that are outside of the box as much. So I think for us, we try not to take money, but that's only because our business needs to generate its own profit. So it's a little different.
Well, I actually like what you said about sometimes you can't think too much outside the box, and you so think outside the box, which I love thinking outside the box, but then sometimes it scares people. So what are ways where you've had to stay inside the box?
Well, I was inside the box for up to my PhD, to tell you the truth. Back then, probably you thought I was gender fluid because probably you thought I was a man or something. I didn't even look a woman because I was in Italy, macho society. I wanted to get it easy, so I've been in the box for quite a lot. Once I got my PhD and my career was set, I got my recording contract with Island Record because of this Galactic Sound were published internationally by Chris Blackwell. Thank you to Chris Blackwell and Rob Fraboni. And so then my name started to become a little bit more heavy duty or a heavy caliber. And that is when finally I could unleash who I was and who I am today. I am a female, I am a woman astrophysicist, and I'm fighting nails every single day because how many of you has seen a woman astrophysicist in the media? Please raise your hand. How many of you recognize Bill Nye, Carl Sagan, my dear friends, Neil Tyson deGrasse? Right. We exist. We exist. We want to come out. Not because we find music and poetry in the lens of our telescope or microscope. We are less devoted to the truth. We love science. We just need some help to come out. And it's especially difficult for Americans like me of a foreign heritage. Accent is tremendously, how can I say, defect. Having an accent, having a foreign heritage is a no-no in Hollywood. So going back to your question, I am really pushing the envelope every single day, and I cannot go back to be the scientist that you think you want me to be. Because I play music, I love fashion, I love my long hair, I will not cut my hair, I'm of Italian heritage.
Hey!
I'm passionate, right?
Yes.
So be with me, let us scientists express ourselves. We need all your help, your girlfriend. We need you, because honestly, it's a big problem. I don't know if you saw the New York Times. Women scientists, we are still serving coffee. We have a same degree. So we need to come out of the box, because with this diversity, it comes creativity. So that's why I stress my individuality. I stress my unique way of thinking, because if I don't do it, who else is going to do it? Which other woman is out there? And trust me, there is a big benefit to talking about society, because once a girl sees a woman that is not intimidating, loves fashion, can talk about shoes, can talk about music and food, she's empowered because she wants to be like you, and she comes out. So we have also a duty as a role model. So I appreciate and I will always celebrate each of you for casting your own way, by putting together things that you think are not possible to do. So merge the opposite, break down those barriers and those things that were told you that you cannot do it. Be more, beat them down. Be a new woman, be a new scientist, be a new entertainer. Show Hollywood how creative and different. Show Hollywood that female astrophysicists exist, and we can dance to the beat of stars and galaxies.
I love that. I love that you're such a trailblazer, and that Chris Blackwell, who had Island Records, he's so amazing too. Talk about a trailblazer, and that's great. He gave you that opportunity as well.
Yes, it did.
Also, Tana, tell us about the obstacles you faced in film and in starting this film festival. I know that it seems a natural because you're from Iowa, but not every actress is going back to her home state and doing what you did.
With the Iowa Film Festival, I think inherent in that is that, like a lot of no's, I think that you receive not just in starting a film festival in Iowa, where film isn't being made, or most of the stuff that's produced in the Midwest is a horror film inherently, or people are just maybe casting extras. But just, you know, I have a film that's being released now at the that's experiencing its world premiere at the Chinese theater that I filmed completely in Iowa, which is really exciting. So, you know, starting film incentives or really gearing people up for a world that they didn't anticipate could be a mode of entertainment, such as an Iowa landscape, is, you know, something that I find exciting. And that was the same with VR, is receiving a whole bunch of no's and glitches and cameras and like with funding, just receiving a whole bunch of no's and people telling you that something was not going to work, at least like a ratio of 50 to 1 for a yes. And then when that broke down, you know, we had to jump over so many hurdles working with different cameras, and then the cameras stopped being made, and then we ended up, you know, sending our footage to a stitcher in Dubai, who was the only existing stitcher of that particular camera that didn't exist anymore, to get the project finally completed. So post has been an unnaturally difficult process in VR versus film, and so just keeping the engine running, and then hearing, of course, as a narrative VR experience, that there's no monetization for narrative VR. Everybody's saying there's no way you're ever going to make money at this. Why would you do this? This is so stupid. And you know, getting the whys, and then just saying, why not? This is an amazing medium. Creating a film experience that is almost like theater in the round, you know, as an actor, and working with a whole bunch of actors who said, I have no idea how I'm going to do this, how to act in VR, and then saying, oh wait, so this is like theater, right? It's kind of like theater in the round. Like, there's no practicals, but I just need to make sure, like, I'm always on camera, dealing with different problems with the directing, and, you know, with everything. It was just a really exciting process, and every time it was like, there's a no, just turning that into a yes, or how do we solve this, was really exciting.
I like the idea of the power of no being a motivator, and I'm sure, Dr. J, you had that like mad, because trying to do what you did in Compton is impossible.
You know, I was just sitting here thinking about the money question, and then now the no. Well, you know, I think along this road that we're on, there's a lot of hellos and goodbyes. And you can't just get a hello the whole time. And you learn from the goodbyes and the no's and the yeses. One of the things that I had to think about when it came to money was I stopped asking for it. And the reason why is because I needed to change my perspective. Because once I realized that it's not about, because first of all, I learned this, money always comes. It always comes some way. But I'm not looking just for money. I was looking for opportunities and access. So that became my message. I had to change my message, because my message was bigger than money. The message was, these young people, these scholars are going to work for you one day. They're going to grow up to be great. They are going to add value to your space as well. When I began to change that message, the message began to change toward us. Because I also learned this, that if I did ask for money, sometimes I got it. And it was less than what I thought. I remember that. I asked Walmart, you know, Walmart's what, multi-billion-dollar, I remember years ago I was so excited. They said, what do you want? I said, $10,000. And I got it. But $10,000, that was gone, quick. And what was that from Walmart? If I had been who I am now, I would have said, I want your time. I want opportunities for my youth to grow and to shadow you, to learn from you. That's what I would have asked. That would have opened up a door that would have lasted probably until now or longer. So one thing I learned is that being in the box too, understanding from the perspective of the partner who does have the funds. They're not just looking to give away money. They want a partnership too. It's a win-win situation. So when I learned, and then we learned to understand that we all need each other. It takes away this notion of I'm just trying to ask for money, because money's going to go away. But what I really wanted was my scholars to have opportunities and access, jobs and training and skills and abilities, and their dreams to come to pass. That was beyond money. And guess what? Money still came too. Wasn't that nice?
Right, and when you have those longer relationships, the money just is going to flow.
Well, exactly. I began to focus on building a relationship. And I'm telling you right now, those 200 partners are not just partners and business people and contracts, and it's not built around that. It's built around a relationship, you know? And they call to check on their scholars. They think they own the students that I work with. They do. They work with them. They say, how are they still doing? Are they still working? I just spoke to, when I was sitting here, you know, trying to pretend I was doing this. That was the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce of Beverly Hills, who used to be the general manager of Lawry's and Prime Rib Restaurant, who opened up his restaurant and brought our students here for 8 years and fed them lunch for free. So they learned how to be in a beautiful place and etiquette skills, and we turned that into a whole different, see, I could have went there and said, do you have $500? You know, for our scholars, for our after-school program, because we could have used it. But when you think about it, 8 years I would not trade that for the 8-year relationship that we had that opened up opportunities for them to go to a nice place and eat well and get dressed up. You should have saw when they got dressed up to go. I tell them, dress up. We're going to dress up. We're going to have a good lunch. How much do we have to spend, Dr. Sandra? I said, nothing. We have a friend over there who invited us. And when we got there, we saw a sign that said, closed for private party. And one of them said, who's the private party? I said, we are. And they had a red carpet rolled out for us when we got there, and their entire staff just standing there waiting to receive us. I could not trade that for $500. Does that make sense to you all?
Yeah.
I had to go beyond money, and I appreciate that, and thank you, thank you.
I love that story, but I do think it's the emotional investment. The other thing is mentors. I think mentors are so key in just changing lives. And how have you all, and we can, whoever wants to take it first, who's been, like, had a great mentor? I have to think everybody has had one. And also whether it was a woman or a man, I'm just curious. You want to go, Tracy?
No, I'll go second or third.
Do you want to go?
Sure. I actually don't think that I have had a mentor, which is hard to say, but I think that that's true. Lots of people have been supportive, but I think it's more because I'm very good at stalking and harassing people. So I definitely am always looking to reach out and connect with people, and I do that on LinkedIn. I use whatever tools I can. So I don't think that there's been a specific mentor that comes to mind. That said, I really try to make an effort with my team, who is almost all women. I think it's easier. I hope that doesn't stay true forever, but it's definitely easier to feel invested and like I can actually add value to a woman's career versus a man's at this point. So I think our team, we spend a lot of time doing retreats and trying to kind of talk about everyone's future, and that feels like an important part of our business.
Do you like mentoring young women coming up within your company?
Yes, I do. I think it's something that I didn't have when I was younger, and I was sort of always resentful of it. Now, of course, I understand why, because it takes so much time and energy to mentor people. And I think if you have so kind of choosing the right people where you feel like it's they're, you know, you can make a difference and the person actually wants help, because it's easy for me to offer advice when it's not even solicited. So I think going to people who are looking for input is very rewarding and can be really helpful to those people.
I do think finding people, young people to mentor is critical. Tracy? I'm back at you.
You're back at me. Similarly, I've had definitely people throughout my life that have influenced me. But I think the greatest influence for what I do really came from my family. I have grandparents who on one side crossed Russia to escape the pogroms, on the other grandparents who survived the Holocaust and had my mother in a refugee camp in Germany at the end of World War II. And I think that having human experiences like that passed on through my family and growing up in a household where those people were present made me want to give my life back to helping others, ensure they weren't in those same situations. So it really came down to that. But the importance of mentors is incredible. When I worked for Jewish Big Brothers Big Sisters of Greater Los Angeles, I saw the power that an adult can have on a child's life. And I think going back to what Dr. J said, you know, really showing them they have value, giving them the ability to dream, is really all they need to thrive. And it's creating those safe spaces for their imaginations, and that often can be, you know, really amplified when you have a loving adult in your life to guide you.
My mentor probably was my grandmother in Italy. She had, huge fantasy. We were walking in the grass at nighttime outside Milan, looking up to the night sky, making stories and fable. So I do see that, the family, your grandmother, your mother has been a big contribution for me to mentoring. I am presently mentoring thousands of students every single year. I teach in Miami, in Florida International University, and I teach a difficult subject, if you think about, because it's a physics with calculus, astronomy, or general physics with trigonometry. So they have a safe environment. They already passed a lot of difficulty in their life. So the safe environment is there. What's the problem we are facing as a mentor in the STEM, in the science, technology, engineering, mathematics? We are facing a breakdown of the student right now because we are losing brain. We do not have any more theoretical physicists. No one wants to go for a difficult path in the academia, such as the STEM field. So what's happening right now is that we are losing a lot of precious brain, a lot of precious mind. So part of my job is actually to bring back the beauty to the STEM field. How do we do that? Well, right now I'm on sabbatical. So I was working with California State University in Channel Island, and I was teaching astronomy. And I asked my student, who you are, what do you want to do? Well, my students are actor, but they want to be biologists. They are engineering, but they want to be a comedian. So what we did was actually an interesting project. All students in astronomy had to write together a space opera, such as a musical, yes, with a storyline, a middle, a beginning, a middle, and an ending. In this musical, they picked all the pop songs from the Billboard Top 10. They also did choreography that represented a certain phenomena, the jet streaming out from a black hole. So the dance, the script, the song, the fashion, the makeup, all was stellar derived. And we got booked to perform live. So now the student had to go a higher level because it's no more only science and art, performance, art, creative design, and astronomy and physics. Now is public speaking. Now is self-confidence. When we got booked to perform live at Arts Under the Stars on May 3 and May 4, a lot of students, especially scientists, right, mathematician, engineer, very introverted, now they had to be on stage. So they learned by taking a STEM discipline, they learned self-confidence, how to be on stage, public speaking, how not to be afraid to be an artist, to be a beautiful model, to be a comedian. Take those elements and meld them together. I had the student bringing photography into physics and astronomy, nail polish into physics and astronomy. They created an experience they are going to remember for the rest of our life. That's the future of education. That's going back to what I was telling you, break down those barriers. And this is the university level. We are forging the new scientist. I have a friend, she's an aviator. I have a mom that did the interview, a beautiful model, a great photographer. You can merge all your interests in one, but don't forget that these days education is fundamental if you want to be competitive. You need to get that degree going. Girlfriends, listen to me. If I didn't have my doctorate, where I would be today? So think about, You got to value education. You got to go for that degree, for that diploma. Then you don't want to use it, who cares? But go through your school, because that open up really the planet to you. I could be teaching in China or in India or in Pakistan, because this piece of paper is universally. Now, we need to keep a young brain. So we need to use performance art, creative design, music, and the most important things, storytelling.
Storytelling is so key, and I think education is so critical. I completely agree with you. I want to just ask, how do you tap into your creativity? What's your technique? What's a good technique? Just to, some days you wake up, you're not as motivated. How do you kind of get it going when you're not feeling it?
I think I'm always tapped in. Like it's definitely hard. I'm one of those people who wakes up in the middle of the night, like every 45 minutes to an hour, and has issues with, like, I can't sleep. So I'm constantly jotting stuff down and then figuring out a way to sort of realize it, because I feel like for me, I'm more of a person that if I don't do it, if I don't see something through to completion, then it's going to bother me more. My regrets will bother me more than and not following through will bother me more than anything. So if I see something, no matter how stupid the idea seems, and if it itches at me, then I have to go for it.
I think but that's great that you always feel that, and that you don't just toss and turn, and you use that and you get creativity from not sleeping.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if that's
Well, you may
so
as well
good. I
do
don't
something
know.
with that.
You're right.
Dr. J, how do you do it where you don't get discouraged? Because there are times where you get no's, and how do you keep going so you don't get discouraged?
Well, that's a great question. I've learned the art of calming down recently. I turned 50. So and meditating and just kind of thinking and remembering why I'm here. And sometimes that comes with me going back to my core. And you're right, we're dealing with a different group of youth that the classroom has to be changed, and the way we teach has to be changed, and the traditional methods have to be reassessed because we're getting, the youth, because when you ask, because you have to, in order for me to continue to keep my game up, I got to remember who I'm working with. And I'm not dealing with kids who are just ready to sit down and be quiet anymore. They have opinions, they say why. When I was young, you couldn't say why. You just, okay. Now they're like, why? And you have to really not get offended by that, because they are thinking. These are thinkers. They were born into a different world. And when you talked about role models, and I often think about real models. We have to be real models now. That we sit and talk with them and share our life experiences, And because they want to be different things, you're right. I wanted to be Oprah for a long time, and I've been waiting for her to die. She won't die. So, I had to accept who I am and what I'm doing. But she's when I think about it, she's a role model. I love things she says. My husband is a great real model to me, who reminds me, that's not who you are, but this is who you are. We need people close to us that bring us back to our roots, because it's where the roots are that I think we get the most nourishment from. And that makes me strong enough to share with another young person. Be your complete self and love yourself. I mean, really, truly like yourself. We always say, I love myself. But like who you are, embrace who you are. And I think that spills out not into vanity or conceit, but accepting me and bringing myself forward, being my most authentic self. And that takes time with yourself, and so when I think about that, going back to the classroom, that's what's going to help also other educators working with youth. We have to go beyond just the curriculum and the instruction, and reading is such a portal to success. I believe that. and allowing our young people to express who they are and giving them space to do it. So that means whatever we did in the past has to change a little bit. We have to tear down the walls and allow, and even the desks, bring them together, collaborate, share, and empower.
I think you're right about that, because right now, kids are on their handheld devices. They
Right.
live on those. Their attention span is different than what it was. But speaking of technology, I think about how when you have a business plan or a plan for philanthropy, how quickly that business
Right.
plan can change. And so maybe, Julia, you can kind of tap into that. When you do maybe a 2, 5-year, 10-year projection, does it change like mad? And do you even, how much do you do them now?
It's a good question. I work in what's considered a creative industry, so the fashion and home design space. We have a team who is constantly designing product, and from my perspective, it's actually become kind of a formula, so I don't actually feel like that is as creative as it maybe sounds like it is. And for me, when I feel like I get to be creative, and I try to challenge my team on ways they can be creative in their positions, because I think people kind of get stuck on the definition of creativity being something that's really related to design or art. And I just try to be creative in my position, so that when I feel the most creative is actually when I'm working in spreadsheets. I really like Excel, and I could build a model to plan out the next couple years, and then it's when I feel the most in flow is just sitting and listening to music and working on spreadsheets. So I think planning out business is something that relaxes me and also inspires me and reminds me what I'm working towards. So it's maybe different for others, but I really like making forecasts and updating them and then thinking about the implications of them, and it helps me work backwards to make shorter term goals that way.
Are they more shorter term goals, and do you have to constantly change them?
Yeah, every day. I'm sort of refining things, which is a separate issue. But yes, I think it's important to kind of revisit them all the time and make sure that the long-term goals match up with the short-term. And I use spreadsheets to help me kind of make sure that those two things are in line with each other.
I like that. All right, Tracy, I know that right now you're working on something really interesting with the First Amendment and protecting the First Amendment, and you also have a lawsuit against this current administration. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that, PEN America has been in the business of protecting the First Amendment for a really long time, following World War I. But every year there are new challenges to that amendment and new tools that need to be leveraged in order to create change. And for the first time in PEN America's history, we decided to sue President Trump, and we're really suing him for utilizing government mechanisms to silence journalists. We've seen it again and again, whether it's the case with Amazon where he tried to change pricing at the U.S. Post Office, or whether it's revoking press passes. We felt that we as an organization were positioned in a place where we could try to fight back on behalf of our membership who are feeling the pressure. We're doing that here in the U.S., but we continue to do that work on an international basis, and we recently celebrated the release of Walon and Kyaw Soe Oo in Myanmar, who were Reuters journalists that were imprisoned for the work they were doing there. I think it's vital that we do protect journalists at this time and speech, and make sure that views are heard so that we have an open society. One of the things, Dr. J, that I'll try to catch you later on is PEN America for years has been doing a writer in residence program at Title I schools and various community centers and different really spaces around California. And we're in the process of building out a journalism unit that will go into Title I schools. It will teach kids about free expression. It will educate them on fake news and how to identify what's real and what isn't online. In the end, we see a publication of a paper, so we're really looking for schools that don't have a school paper, and we're engaging people from the industry to help to come as guest speakers. In addition to the writer-in-residence, there will be journalists. We've had broadcast journalists offer to come in and really go through what you do when you arrive on a scene and what's your responsibility as a journalist and things like that. So hopefully we can explore the possibility of building a new partnership and figuring out ways to teach our kids about free expression and protect the First Amendment.
See how it happened? No, thank you. Can I just add something that I didn't mention it earlier, but I feel a need to say it for me. When you asked the question, how do we, gain that excitement back? How do we, where does that inspiration come from? Also for me, prayer. I pray a lot, and I pray probably more now than I've ever have in my life. And it is calming to me, but it's also centering. And great things have happened through my prayer life. And so I receive that extra bit of inspiration that I couldn't get, that my husband can't give me, my family, even the greatest mentors and real models in my life that I have gotten through prayer. And while I was praying right now, while you all were talking, I got another partnership. See how it worked out? Okay. I had to say that because it's true to me.
No, I think the power of prayer I think that's amazing. I think that this is going to work out right now anyway.
Can we go meet now? Anybody else?
About 15 minutes. The other question I have is just about creativity. And when you look at is there one thing that you're most kind of appreciative of and you feel unbelievable about, the most creative thing that you feel you've ever done?
It's every day, to tell you the truth. Working with 65,000 students at Florida International University is a creative process every single day. There is no time to be wasted. The technology is moving exponentially fast. We are after a virtual reality in astronomy taught as a video game. I'm renaming physics and astronomy. Let's get astrophysical. So there is really no time to waste. We are moving in a fast pace because education is very important for this country and globally. We are also adopting a free textbook in astronomy because all astronomers came together, right, and put together their mind. So all chapters are now done. Homework online is going to be next. So education is moving very, very fast. To me, personally, when I serve again 65,000 students, every single day is inspiration. Means every single day there is some high criticism I do on myself. And if this doesn't work, within 60 to 70 seconds, I have to come up with 15 different strategies to solve, to move forward. So it's a high energy, it's a high intensity job, which I love. Really, education is no more a good word. You don't even address me in terms of finance or ask an educator about money, like we are always poor and miserable and we don't have any money. Right? No? You think about a teacher. I tell you, believe me, there are physicists that are billionaires, but they are much quieter because they invented machine, pioneered within the physics department. It's just, the academia is a little bit a different environment. It's the opposite of Hollywood. My 1 year in sabbatical in Hollywood, if you send out thousands of phone calls, no one return any phone call. Human value in Hollywood seems to be non-existence. Ethic, internet ethic, no one heard about that. No one even took a class, I guess, because they don't even reply a simple inquiry. So where we are in 2019, we are on a cusp. Education, academia, Hollywood has to embrace. It's almost like a new scientist has to emerge. Even a new entertainment has to emerge. I honestly believe that. It will be a new type of entertainment. We are going to break down all of these division, all of these cage we put the human being into. Astronomy, physics will be the most joyful, dance, beauty, sing-along, play-along experience you will ever do. And on top of them, when you take physics and astronomy, you will realize you are a startup. You're gonna also get into business, so we go back to business, because I'm forming scientists also to be business people, things I never had it in my past.
So I'm going to go back to one other thing you said about internet etiquette, which I think there is a class in that. I wanted to write a story on the craziness when somebody doesn't reply to an email.
Yeah,
It's
because internet ethics is a very important, should be mandatory course. Email is like a tennis player. If I send you an email and you
gotta
don't
hit it back.
reply, yeah, you fail. Means you could be liable too.
Well, can we also, group texting? I hate that.
I don't like group texting.
I'm sorry,
either.
no one do that to me, please. It's like, why did you do that? I don't know. I just, when you keep getting texts from other people you don't know, anybody been in group text? Am I the only one? Okay, and then you have to positively, I don't know, how do you say, please don't, or take me off?
You could just say, take me off.
Okay, yeah, I've
Take
done
me
that, and
off,
somebody
yes.
said, what? So it's like, yeah, I just think that there's a way, what I don't want ever to happen is that we stop talking and communicating and meeting, and because I have a feeling we're going to be mute like in 30 years or something. It's like, one of the things I like to keep enforcing is that communication and making friends and going out to eat are so important. Developing relationships, still having that personal touch. One of the things that I encouraged with the height of technology, other principals who I work with and speak to and around the country where I go speak, when I go speak, is to share with them, while you have the ability to send out flyers and emails, and some of you have children where you're getting texts and emails from your schools, that is all great. But I also love the fact, I used to go door-to-door knocking in my community, and I've done it every year in 25 years. And I share this with educators. When was the last time you walked to your neighborhood and knocked on the door and said, hello, my name is? And not asking for anything, but just going to meet people. Let me tell you, I have been invited in for breakfast. I went in, it was wonderful. Let me tell you, I built relationships so that I would have never gained by sending out an email. And not that we didn't do it, but taking the time to go embrace your community. If businesses did that more, I think people would get better responses, because they're always surprised that you're out. Whenever I would be out, kids say, there's Dr. Sandler, at the market, like I don't go to the market. Why are you here? And it's like, I could have waited till I drove back in my own community to do that, but I wanted to do it there just so I could run in to one of our wonderful scholars or parents. And let me tell you, that changes the dynamic. So I always encourage, and I'm going to encourage you all too, make time, because we never have the time, but put on some tennis shoes, go out in your community, knock on the door, and speak to people. And don't be afraid of the community, because people know it. Dogs even know when you're afraid. They start barking at you as soon as you go down the street. They know when you're afraid. And I just bark right back at them. Hi, how are you doing? And give them something. Let me just tell you, you will make a difference, because they're going to say, you were bold enough to come out. And they will invite you in. And when they do, go in. And guess what? They're going to say, that's a real relationship. And I'm just encouraging, that's been my mantra, is to go door to door knocking and get in your community, and your community will come back to you.
I mean, how could anybody ever say no to you about anything? Come on.
Oh, well, talk to my husband about it. I get no's. So.
Tana, I want to know about what it's been like working in Hollywood.
It's actually been really inspiring for me. When you were talking about like you've asked such great questions, and when you were talking about our mentors, my dad in Iowa, I think, raised me to, he would take me out on bike rides in like the back roads in Iowa. That sounds kind of scary, but basically there's not, I was pretty flat, so Dad would be like, okay, I'm going to take you out, hun, and he'd be like, I'd be like, Dad, how far are we biking today? And it would end up being something ridiculous, like a 30-mile or a 40-mile bike ride.
Wow.
And that can get pretty tough, and you end up getting this, biker's crotch because you haven't ridden for very long and you haven't ridden for a long time, and it's just asphalt and it's hot. And I remember this one time when I fell off, and my dad and I locked handles, and I fell off, and I had just asphalt, and this is just one of the many times that my dad's a Vietnam vet, so forgive him, but that I had this, I was just really, really hurt, and my dad, was like, get back up, get back on the bike, I'm taking you home. So I had to bike home for 10 miles and, got in the bathtub and picked out the asphalt from my arm. But the cool thing about that is that my dad taught me that I wasn't just a woman, but a person. And in this town, I've watched art prevail, and I've been here for over 20 years now, and it's not about being a woman in this town, or in AR and VR, or being a man. I've watched the art prevail. I've watched the tech prevail. I've been so fascinated to watch that it's not about being a man or a woman, and that's been so inspiring, and that has kept me in this town. It's like when I moved out here before the hashtag Me Too movement even happened, people asking you to take your shirts off and audition. It's like, well, take your pants off first. It's like we didn't have these people standing up for you as a group entity, but still you stood up for yourself. And in that respect, you had a vision of, I am going to get this done, and what I have to get done is this chalice of opportunity, and this chalice of what I see as an important. It's a movie, it's a project, it's something that stands above being a certain sex or a certain color. And that has prevailed, and that stands out in humanity. And in this town, also in AR and VR, on these women's panels, there used to be like 3 women on the panels, and there used to be like 1 person in the audience, and now it's like these panels get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I used to go to tech conferences, and I was one woman in maybe out of how many men, and now it's mostly women. Sometimes are bigger than and usurping the amount of men. And but again, it's not about being a male or female. It's about seeing something through to its inception. It's about believing in something. And so I think what's so inspiring about Hollywood is that I see it as genderless, and I see it as people who are getting something done and seeing something when they have been all told against all odds no. And they're like, this will not happen. You are a moron to move out there. All your family's in Minnesota. What, are you crazy? And they do it anyway. And so in that respect, it's like really being like in a sort of Game of Thrones reference. You have this Hollywood world of people who are going to fight for your King's Landing of Hollywood, and they're going to be on your side, and they're great soldiers. That was like totally I totally geeked out with that one.
No,
but I am a Game of Thrones. I am depressed that it's over.
I liked it. But I also liked your reference on the Me Too thing too.
Yeah.
I just want to do, because we're about to wrap up quickly, and we'll start with Tracy, just one word. I'm going to ask 2 different questions, 1 word answer. How do you relax?
Well, what's Tana's nightmare is my relaxation. My husband and I do bike packing. We usually tend to go off the beaten path. We've traveled the Colorado Trail and the Great Divide and many other places. So being on the foot of a 12,000-foot mountain and getting to the top and seeing those views is really what inspires me to go on every day.
I'll say bullet journaling.
Wait, what is that?
Google, it's amazing. I have it right here, bring it everywhere. It's basically, I like to make lists, but I like to make lists about everything from the way I raise we have an 11-month-old baby. He has a page in the bullet journal, but also my future plan for exiting and getting my company acquired. So it's a strategic way. It basically combines journaling and scheduling into
So
one.
it's bullet journaling, and do you do it every day?
Yeah, multiple times a day. Yeah.
I like that. I mean, that keeps your life organized,
It
too.
does, and it keeps your head organized when you have balancing a lot of different areas of life. It's hard to find strategies that help, and I think that bullet journaling is amazing. So.
Okay, I'm going to try bullet journaling. Maybe that will organize me.
I don't relax, but I would like to take.
Is that surprising?
That is a surprise.
But I would like to take the opportunity to give a shout out to 4 amazing women that are in the audience today. And I would like my girlfriend Cheryl Schumer. She is a businesswoman, entrepreneur, Beverly Hills Cannabis. You see her on CNBC, and exactly you know her. I would like to give a shout out, brava, to Sunny Buck. She's a very famous photographer, a top model, all the Rolling Stone musician. My beautiful Erin, she's a businesswoman and tennis gear. Please stand up, Erin. And my wonderful dear friend Donna Clarkson, mother of a killed daughter by Phil Spector. And thank you so much for being here. I love you very much.
What was it?
So it was just quick. Just how do you relax?
I mean, Game of Thrones.
Now what? Now what?
I haven't figured that out yet. Cry.
Reading a real good book. That's very calming to me. Just taking time, like by a fire, curling up, reading a good book is very calming to me.
Okay, last question, and I mean, I already know this kind of for you, but you still have to answer it, Tana.
Oh, no.
How much do you sleep a night?
About 6 hours.
I still try to get 10 hours, 8 to 10. It's just
But
that
you're
they're-
getting up all night?
Yeah, but I just have like the commercial breaks, you know, of, like where I wake up,
Oh, yeah.
write
Okay.
stuff down.
She's like, I don't, no, she's going to say, I don't sleep.
No, I sleep very well. At the end of the day, I'm done. I touch the bed and I'm destroyed. My body, my mind needs that 6-7 hours sleep, and it's solid because again, I get to sleep and I'm exhausted.
Well,
I mentioned I have an 11-month-old, so I don't really sleep. But before that, 7 to 9 hours, and hopefully one day again when he's 40 or something.
it will happen. It will happen.
Sleeping is not a problem for me.
Do you do like 8 hours?
Yeah, at least.
That's good.
have no
I'm getting there.
Well, I want to thank, no, I think, sleep is critical. I want to thank
It
you
is.
all for
Thank you.
doing this today. You're just amazing, amazing group of women. And thank you for coming. And you'll all be around for people to talk to, correct? Okay, great. Thank you.
Women are cutting edge. Women! Woo!